Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is part 2 of my Peak Time Techno 3 Ableton template explanation. Last week we talked about sound design and composition, and this week we're gonna talk more about the arrangement, the automation, variation, mixing and mastering. So if you wanna check part 1, I put the link in the description. Basically this template has been made during my live stream session on my other Audio React YouTube channel, where I go live every 2 Sundays and I create track from scratch, so you can basically watch how I create the track from zero until what you got here. Yeah, let's have a listen to the track before to start to talk about the arrangement. That'll give you an idea of the track. So in terms of arrangement, the idea was to have like one main lead and one arpeggiator, like kind of one arp melody, which was not really playing on the background, but not as important as the lead. So we have our lead, which was like this, and our arp, which is sounding more like. So sometimes I will have an arp which is kind of playing in the background, and which is like the backbone of the track, not that important. Here it's kind of the backbone, but it's kind of important as well because it's what we're gonna use for our kind of verse actually. So here's our global idea of the track, and then after we will go through each part individually. We have our intro, then we have a small breakdown. So during our intro we introduce this arp, and then we have the verse part, so which is where the arp is playing, and we have some very driving drums, and then we go into the breakdown. So it's very long break where we introduce our main lead, which is going up and up, and then after we play our lead and the arp together, but obviously this time the arp is a bit more in the background and you have the lead a bit more in the front, and so it's playing like this, and we have a bit of variation that I will talk about later, and then we go into our final breakdown and then the outro. So pretty short track, but at least it's not boring. There is always something interesting happening. And yeah, let's start with the intro. It starts with this kind of percussive, noisy percussive cinematic hit. This is really great to don't have something too dry and too empty at the beginning of your track. It straight away adds a bit of something and excitement, and we start the track with the kick, some close hi-hat, some percussion, and the rolling bass. So it starts like this. Then during our intro we have this percussion which pop up here and there to add variation. I've also tried to add variation every 8 bars, so you're gonna have an extra layer of something every 8 bar. Can be hat, can be synth, can be other synth stab. But yeah, the idea of the intro is like to introduce the elements slowly, starting to build the tension, the energy of the track obviously. So then we add second open hat. We start to introduce our arp. We have some synth stab playing. So this kind of synth stab are really great for 2 things. First, like kind of fill the blank a little bit, add a bit of variation here and there, like I've done with the first perk here like I've done with the percussion in the first part of the intro. And second, it can help to with the transition. For example, I have this synth here which is gonna play almost every 8 bars. So here. So every time there is a new element, there is this which is introduced as well. And so the arp is going up, and we build the tension more and more until the short break. I add a clap as well. So here you can see I've done something interesting with the ARP. I build the tension until we go into the first short break, and then as far as we are in the short break, I bring straight away down the filter. You don't really realize or pay attention because there is other things happening in the same times, and mainly like this new lead it's playing. So that's catch your attention. You don't really pay attention that the filter went down, but then what it allowed you when you have the filter down again is obviously to again build tension, and which is perfect before your first drop, before you build up during the breakdown. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna bring the ARP filter up more and more, and we're gonna add as well this SFX here to build tension. So you have some noisy hats, and you have as well a snare roll. So the volume increase more and more. So if you wanna find out how to make that, I explained last week. But yeah, all of that is gonna add tension until we goes into the verse, and which our first drop where we get rid of all of the drum, and you have your ARP playing full on with the maximum volume. And yeah, then we keep going after with our synth step as well. In the same time than the drop, you have this horn effect, which is super nice to add a dramatic effect to your drop. It's just like work well. It's just like makes your drop sounds better. Yeah, so it sounds like this, the break plus the drop. We add some hats. So obviously here, you see at the intro, you was introducing slowly, one after one, the hats. Here you don't want that to do it again. You want straight away to have something more driving, because like now the track started, so you don't have time to like take the time to introduce element. You want things to go fast, being driving, being energetic. That's why you start straight away with that. And then we add some ride, and then we go into the breakdown. So here for our breakdown, we get rid of all of our kick, bass, drums, percussion, more or less pretty much everything except the ARP. And we have as well here the horn playing, so like this dramatic cinematic effect. Like this is kind of things that you have in a movie trailer, or like to kind of add tension. That's perfect. And we have this percussive hit, the same at the intro, and just kind of low it. Again, cinematic effect, work perfect for breakdown. And then we introduce this drone, which is a very low bassy, not bassy, but like bassy mid sound. It's like a super saw sound, but it will help with the tension, especially that we are modulating the filter, and the more it goes, the more the filter open. So it led the listener to say, okay, there is something coming, get ready. And then we're gonna start to introduce our lead slowly, first having a little bit of the pattern first before to start the pattern again, but with the filter and the GK very close, so you're gonna hear. And then after we're gonna build the tension with the SFX, and you have as well SFX on the mix down, this riser knob, which is it's kind of a washout effect, so it's bring all of your sound into a lot of delay and reverb. What I do as well, all of my tracks basically are going through this sub mix down that I can send into a return as well, and I does that. It's a return with a lot of reverb, and again it's accentuate this washout effect, and everything get noisy, and it's just feel like your sound is being lifted up, and yeah, you got this nice rising effect. So yeah, that's what everything does. So now let's play. Again, the up, bring down the filter to being able to bring it up again and bring the tension. The drone is going up as well. Here progressively as well. I introduce the main lead, but not the full pattern. Alright, so we built all the tension. We had this same SFX that I showed you before as well. And you can see that right before we drop, we have the pattern, which is playing the pattern of the lead, which is playing an octave upper. Obviously, the decay and the attack and the filter are at different position because that's what's brings contrast. That's what's gonna bring tension. It's really important, like for this pattern, nothing is playing in the same time, just this one. You go from basically beginning of the breakdown, everything is quiet. Very, very, very quiet, and then you bring everything up, all the filter, to build something very noisy, very, very intense, and very powerful. And then right before to drop, you cut everything down to being back to something very quiet. So that's why you need to cut everything. I've cut literally everything stopped there except this pattern. And then it gets obviously loud again with the drop. And it's important to do that because if you do this small break right before, you go from something low, then you go up, something super high, and then you go down back to something low and to finally go back again to something super loud. And you create dynamic this way. If everything was just like full on, obviously your sound doesn't have impact, it doesn't have tension, nothing happening. So you really need to have this low and high moment and alternate them in order to have nice rising effect, nice tension, and very impactful drop. So that's what I've done here. So here, one thing I'm doing, I'm sending the track to this return that you can see I've cut it here as well, this return, because you're gonna hear what it is, this return. It's basically, I send my old track into this track, which is like a lot of reverb. The track is not from me, it's from Make It Transition YouTube channel. I will put it in the description. You can go and grab it. It's a free rack. It's just basically some reverb, but a nice preset that's work always well. And it allow me, when you send that, everything is going to a reverb and into a big space, and it's just build the tension, increase the tension, increase the excitement. And obviously, like I said, for the small part just before the drop, I want a quieter moment, so I have to shut it down. That's why I automate the track volume. Then we have our drop, just this synth horn, like dramatic cinematic effect, and you just have everything play with the low filter. The ARP is very down with the low filter. Here our main synth as well. Okay, this filter is down. Again, creating contrast, dynamic, it's very important. No drums. So you can hear again, same, I build again the tension more and more. So first I have no drums, then I have just the first open hat, then I had the second open hat, then I had the close hat, and then I had the ride. Yeah, then after I add some stab as well to add variation, and obviously the lead is modulating during I play with the GK, I play with the filter as well. And yeah, then I add some more drums, and then after here what I've done is to add a bit of excitement instead of here, because here what's happening, the main difference between this part and this part here is the drum. So I'm changing the pattern of the open hat to a more driving one. Here you can see where it's going crescendo, up, 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 and to make it more exciting, the trick here is, again, getting rid of everything, playing the lead at a pattern which is 12 semitone, 1 octave upper, so a higher pitch. And then I drop with more drums, so it does something like this. Alright, and then it's got like this for 8 bar, and then we go into our final breakdown, which is similar to this one, a bit shorter obviously, because our lead is already playing. But yeah, what I do is I break down the filter to bring it up, just to add tension. And I do the same with the ARP, you know, when you bring down everything down to make things a bit more quieter, to bring then after the filter up and up to build tension, and I add this SFX. And here is again the same trick where I build everything and then I cut everything right before the drop to play this high pitched pattern. And then yeah, after we drop into the outro, so yeah, the breakdown sound like this. And then goes the outro, which is kind of very similar to the intro, but obviously the other way around. Instead of adding element, we'd get rid of. So we're gonna slowly get rid of the ARP. We're getting rid of the hats slowly. You know, first you have your driving open hats and close hats. Then you just have your open hats and close hat. And then you just have your close hat. And then you don't have any more drums. Same goes with the ARP, which is like the cutoff is going down. So you get rid of it. And yeah, you still have some send stab, obviously, to make it a bit less boring. You have the percussion, which are back, percussion 2 and 3, to add this variation. And yeah, basically the outro is just getting rid of everything until you have almost just the kick and bass and the perk. Alright, and that's the global arrangement of the track. Now let's talk about automation and variation. So automation, there is two main things. First with the ARP, where obviously, like I said, I was modulating the filter to kind of bring down the tension to then build it up. So that's why you can see like going up, and then down. Then up during the breakdown. Obviously, when the lead was playing, I kind of keep it low, you know, to leave the space for the lead. Yeah, then after always I bring it up on the last part of the chorus, and then during the breakdown bring it down and then up, and then slowly bring it down for the outro. And the lead, to make it a bit more interesting, there is a couple of variation. Mainly with the GK and the filter, so like your sound will get a bit longer or shorter according to your GK position. Getting longer and then getting closer, kind of getting sharper. And then you have the filter, obviously, where it's like sometimes it's more down, sometimes it's a bit more up, and here obviously it's the break. So here basically I was like, first time you hear it's pretty low, second time a bit more upper, and then a bit more upper, and like almost fully open. And then it goes down, and even though it's very open because we reduce the GK, it's kind of this very short sound. But then now we open the GK and we open the filter together and we build this tension. Really, this was on this part, so it's kind of making the sound a little bit last longer. It's kind of adding a long tail. Imagine you was adding reverb with a long tail. It's what it does. So it's perfect for the break, because then you get around you close from dropping, around your close to your momentum. It creates this big mess washout sound, which adds a lot of energy, and playing with the release is a great way to add that. I have an EQ with a low pass filter. Obviously, it's again to kind of help, because the low pass filter I couldn't bring it too down, and it was not really working as great as an EQ. So that's why I have the EQ here. Utility, again, I explained it, is for just before the drop when there is the higher pattern playing, I need to shut down everything. So that's what I'm doing with the utility. And then the send to the return that I've explained as well. It helps bring tension. The drone as well, exactly the same. I modulate the filter going down and up, bring tension. There is nothing crazy. There is some modulation with this SFX, which is kind of basically kind of a hat, and where I play with the GK to go from something very short to something very long. And then I play with the delay feedback, which is great because it will add more and more delay basically to your sound, and like it's getting louder and louder and louder because obviously the feedback is refeeding into the delay, so it's like getting crazier and crazier, but it's perfect to add tension. And then this is just like to cut a little bit everything, cut the volume a little bit down, because you create this very noisy and very loud sound, but then when it drops, you don't want to be as loud because I told you contrast dynamic, so you want to reduce the dynamic to don't be as loud, and so you kind of bring down the volume like this. So you go from something like this. And it might sound brutal now, but obviously in the context of the track, it doesn't sound as brutal. Because you have as well the snare roll and other elements. So here it does the same on the snare roll. I have a delay with where I play with the feedback. It's exactly the same thing. So to bring up the feedback until like it start to have this feedback resonance. It's just attention. Here again, I cut down the volume because I don't want it to overlap on the drop because it will make too much noise and you will lose that contrast, that dynamic again. And yeah, and then the second main automation that we have is, so here's our mix down and you have a low cut. So that's what I use for the break to cut the kick basically and to cut the lower energy. So this is pretty common, probably familiar with. So that's what I use here. And then this riser effect, which is kind of a washout. You see it bring everything into a lot of delay reverb. Kind of filter as well in the same time. I'll put the link in the description if you want to find out more, but this is a pretty classic DJ effect, let's say. That's it for that. Now let's talk about mixing. So if you watched last week's video, you've seen that there is not that much mixing things going on my track. Usually for two reasons. First, I think 90% of your mix is making sure you pick up the right element that fit together very well. For example, drum, which are fitting well together, but like really well. But can be also like when you pick up synth, when you add layer, making sure that they don't overlap each other, that they don't clash with each other, making sure that they fit as well the rest of the track. And all of these decisions will make sure that you have a very clean mix already without even starting mixing. Another thing which is really important, which I think it's overlooked, is how I balance every track, the volume. Obviously, there is no tips I can give you. This is like really depend of each track, really depends what you want to put more in the front, but it's something that I will really recommend you. Instead of trying to tweak an EQ or compressor for 5 hours, make sure first your track is at the right level. Other tips I can give you is being careful with effects such as delay and reverb because it introduces some tails and long tail and which is gonna overlap with other elements, and especially reverb, they are usually kind of messy, the tails, so very noisy. So make sure that it's not too long. So obviously sometimes you want to put it in a big space, so your reverb needs to be long, but try to avoid. One thing I can recommend you is using the EQ of the reverb to kind of tame a little bit the high frequency. I've done it, for example, here you see I EQ my reverb, so this way I don't have all of this unnecessary high frequency because the problem is like here, it might seem like a minor problem here, but the thing is all of your track, you have this little noise in the high frequency that is useless, but it adds up and it creates a big noise and it's what makes you sound not clear and a bit messy. So that's another tip I can give you, trying to filter the delay obviously when you can. This obviously I say when you can, so don't filter your delay because you think your mix is messy. It's like usually you will add delay for some design purpose, so keep it like this, but sometimes maybe you will be able to reduce a little bit the frequency range. It won't alter too much your sound, but then you will gain a little bit clarity in your mix. So that's one thing to do. And then it's mainly two other things I do very often is adding saturator and EQ. Saturator is mainly to add harmonics and gain a little bit of perceived loudness, so your sound is louder but at the same level. And the second thing is EQ, usually to remove frequency I don't need and boost the one that I feel will help the sound cut through the mix or fit in the mix. Here again, I don't have any rule. It really depends per track, per type of sound, or even per sound what you're gonna boost or not. I like usually, if you wanna add a bit of clarity, usually 1 kHz, 3 kHz, 5 kHz, 8 kHz are kind of nice frequency for that, but again it's not a rule. It's like, but it can be great to as a starting point. And yeah, all the other element you will see it's mainly sound design purpose more than really mixing. I had a bit of saturation on his hat and you can see EQ like to really boost this part because I feel like it was adding something. Overdrive is add a bit of loudness mainly, but yeah, EQ is just few EQ and this is stereo. I talked about it last week. Sidechain obviously it's important because it can leave space in your mix. So that's the first thing that can add to your mix. Second thing is gonna add groove to your track because you have this pumping effect. Once I was saying like to avoid to have a too long reverb tail or delay. One thing I like to use lately is use the transient negatively of the drum bus. This way it kind of reduces a little bit the tail of a reverb. It acts like as a gate, so like as the gated reverb. You see how I do that because this way you still feel the clap is in the loud room and with a nice reverb, but you don't have the inconvenience of having a long tail. Because you can tell me, oh, but why don't you just reduce the decay of your reverb? Yes, but then the clap doesn't feel in the loud space if you reduce the decay. Rather than if you leave a bit longer decay, you still get this loud room effect, but then the gate is here to kind of shut down your reverb tail. Best of both worlds. And yeah, for example, here there is absolutely nothing, and then just EQ reverb, EQ saturation, reverb. Here again, you see like trying to EQ the reverb can make a bit of difference. Only do it if you feel it's adding something. Just don't do it because I said that it will help you maybe. Do it. If it doesn't change nothing, don't do it. I'm trying to see, but you can see by yourself that there is nothing really more than EQ saturation, reverb delay. And I know that might annoy you because you are after this little secret mixing tips, but the only tips I can give you, it's the one you probably hate hearing it, but it's the truth. The real one is after 200 mix, your ear's gonna get better and you're gonna hear things better and you're gonna know how to make better decision, which area to boost or not in your EQ. And yeah, all of this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't have really especially any more mixing tips. So that's it for the mix. And now let's talk about mastering. So mastering, it's what I call homemade mastering. The reason why I'm saying that is because even I know kind of how to master, I don't consider myself as a mastering engineer. I think it's something like you really need the proper tool, the proper knowledge, and the proper room to really make a great job, really make a great difference. But what I know what to do, and what I think everyone should know at least what to do, is how you can make your track a little bit more tighter altogether, a bit more louder, a bit maybe more stereo, and yeah, mainly as well louder, in the way that you can at least play your track in the sound system and see how it reacts and how it competes a little bit with other track, if that's something important to you. Alright, so first you have utilities just to bring the stereo a little bit and make sure everything under 120 Hz is in mono. So that's more like to make sure that everything is okay under 120 Hz and add a bit of stereo. It's nothing crazy. Then I will do some decompression. So this is just to bring everything a bit more together, a bit more tight. There is some sidechain EQ, the reason being that if you don't do sidechain EQ, your kick and your low end is gonna trigger your sidechain compression, so your compressor is gonna react in relation with your kick low end. And the thing is, your low end is what is the most loud in your mix, so basically your glue compression is gonna react according to your kick and not to your overall kind of mix. So what I do is I assign an EQ, so this way I kind of glue everything else. Because if you don't do that, your compressor is gonna react to your kick, and then you're not gonna have this global glue compression. And then you want very slow attack to let the transient pass. I use the release quite fast as well, and I usually leave the release in the middle. This really depends on the track and how much of the pumping effect you want, but usually around there it's what works the best for me. Same with the ratio. I don't want something too drastic, so I don't go at 10, but I don't want something too subtle, so I don't go at 2. Stay at 4. And then what I will usually do is bring down the makeup threshold at 0. And again, I don't want something too crazy, so I will always look for like around 3 dB of reduction, and I will compensate with the makeup gain and activate the subclipping. Alright, then some EQ, mainly to rebalance everything. Cut everything under 30 Hz. Usually, there is always something I remove around here, so it depends. It can be around 200 Hz, but it can be less or more, because it's always something here that kind of makes things a bit more muddier, so I kind of always remove a little. Obviously, everything is no more than like 3 dB reduction. And then I boost, so it depends. Again, like I told you, I like to boost at 1 kilo, 3 kilo, and 5 kilo. So that's what I do here. It really depends, so it's not always exactly 1 kilo, but you can see it's pretty close. And It's just like enhance the mid-high. A slight high chef as well to bring back this very high frequency, just to add a bit of air to your sound, and then a low cut at 16 kilohertz, like to really get rid of all of this high unnecessary frequency that you cannot even hear. Saturation, I use saturator. It's more like kind of, I will use it as an exciter, or like as a, if Ableton have a tape saturator, I would rather use a tape saturator, but they don't have that, so I use that. Just 2 dB out drive. This you have to be gentle, it's depend your track, because obviously with the kick and everything, it kind of can easily mess up everything. Sometimes I bring down the dry wet a little. Here was sounding okay like this, and then you have color limiter, which is gonna add a bit of warmth. Same I did on the saturator, is because it's kind of replacing the tape, the warmth. I don't know. Again, like it doesn't add that much. It's not that much loud, but you can feel like, I don't know, you can feel like it's louder and it's warmer and a bit more full as well. And then I use 2 limiter in service just to have like one first to cut the peak and a second one as well to make, this is just to make things louder and squash everything. And why 2 is, the reason why I do 2 is just to do things a bit smoother instead of having one which is gonna add 4 dB and squash everything. Here I have like the first one which is squashing a little first, and the second one, and it's just a bit more gentle way to use limiter. Yeah, I think that's pretty much for today's guy. I hope you like this video. I hope you like the template. If you want to grab it, it's a great way to support me. Link in the description. And see you soon, guys, for a new video. Bye bye.